other people who were actually warned that the building was going to come down, and they were telling people to leave the area that this building was going to come down. No steel framed structure has ever collapsed like that from fire. So how would they know that this was coming down? How did the BBC know that it was coming down 45 minutes in advance, an hour in advance? How did they know? Inside job. And the owner of the building, Larry Silverstein, he did own World Trade Center 7, but in July of 2001, he took out a huge insurance policy and bought up the rest of the World Trade Center complex, all the buildings. Huge insurance policy with specific placements for terrorism, so that he was covered for terrorism. Not only that, Silverstein appeared on a PBS show called America Rebuilds. And he said, quote, "I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that we were not sure that they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, we had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it." And they made that decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. And at the website, harrythomas.info, under the weekly news section for September 10th, 2009, I have a link to that video. You can watch it for yourself, of him saying it. I mean, don't take what I say as truth. Investigate it for yourself. And then you will end up in the rabbit hole, just like I did. And if you're morally sound, you will take action. Now, there's another point to this about the Silverstein statement, is when questioned about it, he said that when he said pull it, that he meant pull the firefighters out of the building. Absolutely incorrect. People were on record saying that the firefighters were pulled out of the building somewhere between 11 and 12 noon, 11 a.m. and 12 noon that day. The firefighters weren't in that building. So how could he be saying pull the firefighters out of the building? Plus, you also know that he's a darn liar. Criminal that he is. Should be sitting in jail right now. Because listen to what he said. He said, the smartest thing to do is pull it, and they made the decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. They made the decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. Pull it is a demolition term. You can research that for yourself. This came out of the Washington blog, September 3rd, 2009. Former high-ranking intelligence officer says Cheney's responsible for 9/11. David Steele is a 20-year Marine Corps infantry and intelligence officer, second-ranking civilian in the United States Marine Corps intelligence, and former CIA clandestine services case officer. And this article says that in his writings, he said, Cheney saw an opportunity for what Bush called his trifecta, and gave it to him by allowing the go-ahead to ISI and Al-Qaeda, and ordering up a terrorism exercise that allowed him to send all relevant close in-air defense strip alert craft away from the targeted areas, and to disable the Northcom normal response to a flight path diversion. So yeah, they purposely sent our protectors, our fighters, off to where they could not respond in time. Oh my God. And Cheney took over Northcom. Cheney should be in jail sitting right next to Larry Silverstein. Really, maybe they should be bunk mates. This article here says Dick Cheney only had to delay a couple of minutes to get his long short dose. I mean, all these articles that I'm reading from are long articles. It's in the news section. I make a news page showing exactly what I'm talking about. And, and this just goes on how he found a member, helped found the Project for a New American Century, which said that without a catastrophic and catalyzing event like the new Pearl Harbor, transformation of America into an empire would be very slow. They said they needed an event like Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor killed like 3,000 people. 9/11 killed 3,000 people, plus countless thousands other now in the war on terror. Justice needs to be served. Like I said when I opened up the show, I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to be slaves to the system. We shouldn't have to eat these lies that our corrupt government officials hand us. It's nonsense. Very much nonsense. And because the globalists own the media, none of these facts are going to get the time of day. They're going to get a little blurb over it, and then on the other hand, they're going to deny and demonize anybody that gets any kind of ground on it. I mean, actually, there's another thing I wanted to talk about Cheney, kind of a side issue of 9/11, but Seymour Hersh reported that Cheney ran a military assassination ring from his vice presidential office, which, you know, there's very little evidence to it, but I could foresee it happening because there was government officials that was supposed to be meeting with the Pakistani leader, Benazir Bhutto. Their next stop on the list was I believe it was, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it was Kennedy and someone else. Or, well, it doesn't matter, but it was some of our illustrious politicians. The next stop on the agenda was to meet with them. And she switched plans and cars and everything else because her life was in jeopardy. And they say, well, we can't figure out exactly how they knew where she was going to be. I don't know. Where was her next stop on the trip? And, you know, Cheney was running these assassination rings. That needs to be investigated into. Really does. And also, Seymour Hersh also reported on Cheney in a meeting that he was in, talking about how they were going to paint U.S. warships like Iranian warships and fire on their own people to justify a conflict with Iran that we're almost pretty much there. I got just a little bit, couple more things on 9/11. We're going to get into some other stuff. 911summary.com, highly credible people question 9/11. And that is true. There's websites with architects and engineers, scientists, scholars. We're talking about highly educated, highly credible people that have written dossiers and all kinds of public reports on exactly how 9/11 was an inside job. You can check that out for yourself. I've got links up. This one, an independent investigation into the Pentagon attack yields alarming information. A 3-year independent investigation into September 11, 2001 attack on the Pentagon has yielded new eyewitness evidence, which, according to the Southern California-based researchers who conducted the investigation, conclusively and unfortunately establishes a historical fact that the violence which took place in Arlington that day was not the result of a surprise attack by suicide hijackers, but rather a military black operation involving a carefully planned and skillfully executed deception. They have compiled the most pertinent testimony into an 81-minute video presentation entitled National Security Alert, which has earned the respect and praise of a growing number of distinguished academics, journalists, writers, entertainers, pilots, and military personnel. I have a link to that video up at harrythomas.info under the weekly news section. Incredible. Incredible. And now for the final 9/11 report. I know I've spent an awful long time on this, but it's very important, especially when tomorrow is the anniversary of 9/11. Giuliani is pushing 9/11 re-education course for public schools. President Obama isn't the only high-profile politician undergoing a campaign to indoctrinate Americans' youth. Mr. 9/11 himself, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the man Joe Biden pointedly called unqualified for the presidency, is now helping to push a course for public schools in the subject of, well, what else could Giuliani speak to? 9/11. A new pilot multimedia program called the September 11th Education Program was unveiled today in downtown Manhattan for students in 6th through 8th grades. And FEMA published a coloring book saying something scary happened that day, and it was they want to still instill this fear into kids that weren't even alive on 9/11, that weren't even can't even remember what happened on 9/11. Fear. This is fear-based terror, and they're using fear to control us all, and it's a rotten shame. And and these New World Order minions, these one world government fascist Luciferians, because that's really what they are, the Luciferians. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But, they are using our kids. They're preying on our kids. I mean, if anything, if you don't care about anything else in the world, okay, you should care about the kids. Come on. That's the future. That's the future, and they're under serious mind control. They're being bombarded with it. Now, I reported before on the show about how Boy Scouts